Hi, my name is Milena Cuña. I am a medical student of Catholic University of Santiago de Guayaquil, and this is a work for the subject Medical English. My topic is measuring the value of prescription drugs. I'm gonna talk about definition, applications in medicine, pros and cons, issue applied in Ecuador, and conclusion. Let's start with the definition. Prescription drug. A prescription drug, also prescription medication or prescription medicine, is a pharmaceutical drug that legally requires a medical prescription to be dispensed. In contrast, over-the-counter drugs can be obtained without a prescription. How much is a drug worth? Well, the healthcare industry as a whole hasn't developed a consistent method for pricing drugs, though so far they have developed therapy value frameworks considering its own approaches and priorities on placing a value.
While you choose which brand of shampoo to buy, your doctor chooses which brand of drug you need. And while everyone pays the same price for the chips, you may pay more for the same prescription than the person next to you, and less than the person next to her. How are prescription costs really determined? It starts with a drug manufacturer's list price, but this isn't the money a manufacturer makes. First, a wholesaler buys the drugs. 3 major wholesalers control 90% of the market. These Fortune 25 companies can negotiate discounts off the list price. Then, they mark up the drug and sell it to a pharmacy. That's how the drug gets to the store. But it's not the price you pay. That's because of insurance. There are many kinds of insurance, but for many of us, insurance comes through our employer. That employer, or the insurance company they work with, hires a pharmacy benefits manager, or PBM, to negotiate a rebate from the drug's manufacturer. Different PBMs may negotiate different rebates. 3 large PBMs control 75% of the market. If different manufacturers offer similar drugs, these PBMs can drive a hard bargain, further reducing the manufacturer's net price. What PBMs do with the rebate varies. They may pass it to your employer, keep some of it, or keep all of it. The amount the PBM retains becomes part of their profit. Your employer agrees to pay a portion of the drug's cost, but the amount they pay may be different from the amount paid by other employers. Confusing, huh? Based on what the employer expects to pay and how much rebate their PBM negotiated, the drug goes on a copay tier set by your insurance company. That determines your out-of-pocket cost. There are preferred brand tiers, non-preferred brand tiers, and more. The higher the tier, the more you pay, regardless of the drug's list price. Indeed, your copay has less to do with the drug's list price than with how much your insurance agrees to cover. That's why different employers and insurance plans put the same drugs on different tiers. While this enables consumer choice in insurance plans, it can also be frustrating. For example, when a plan moves a drug from one tier to another. At the pharmacy, you pay your portion and the PBM reimburses the pharmacy using a complex calculation. They then charge that cost plus a fee back to the insurance company. Whew! So, while the list price is often used in stories about prescription drug costs, it's not what the drug company makes. It's almost never what a consumer or anyone else in the healthcare system pays. And most of the control over the final cost to you, the patient, rests with your insurance company or employer and the PBM. The system functions best when all players work together for the benefit of the patient.
Applications in medicine. Escalating drug prices have alarmed physicians and the American public and led to calls for government price controls. Less visibly, they have also spawned a flurry of private sector initiatives designed to help physicians, payers, and patients understand the value of new therapies and thus make better choices about their use. These organizations are American College of Cardiology and the American Heart Association, the American Society of Clinical Oncology, the Institute for Clinical and Economic Review, Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, and the National Comprehensive Cancer Network. Each organization's framework accounts for factors underlying value, such as the quality of clinical data supporting the therapy's use, the magnitude of its treatment effects, the likelihood of severe adverse events, and the product's costs, ancillary benefits, cost effectiveness, and effects on the health system budget.
While striving for the highest value in the healthcare system is very important and beneficial, understanding what value means to the patient is critical.
Let's ensure that patients are integrated into the development of treatments, and let's also integrate ourselves into the development of delivery system design. If we don't participate in this discussion, the healthcare system is going to evolve and other people are going to define value for us. We need to be part of the discussion.
I worry about as we move towards more centralized decision-making, which some of the value frameworks do, that we get away from patients being able to make those kind of choices that really do matter to them. So patient input is important, having reliable, relevant information, methods that are transparent so that everyone knows how the decisions ultimately get made, ensuring that the evidence is used as sound evidence and that it allows for the progress of innovation and new treatments, and tools that actually help patients and physicians make informed decisions.
So how can we get patients involved early on when we're thinking about which topics we're going to study? How can we involve them as we develop the scope around those topics? And how can we involve them going forward in terms of getting their feedback in terms of the things we need to be considering as part of our economic analyses or part of our clinical effectiveness?
The science is going in a very different direction where we know more about, individual medicines, and we are becoming more personalized. And if at the end of the day we don't value, when we come to the payment piece, what patient outcomes we looked at in terms of our drug development, if that isn't paid for, then we're in a really kind of precarious position. And I do worry that, if we're asking patients for their input on the front end, let's carry that through to the end continuum so that when it comes to paying for those medicines, we're paying for what patients also value.
I think we need to both, improve the health of populations and healthcare on average, while also making sure that patients who need customized treatment, personalized treatment, get access to that treatment. So I think we need to, it's not like an either or, I think we need to make strides in both areas.
The most important thing is putting the patient front and center in the conversation.
We hear a lot about patients being included in the discussion, but it's still not enough and not at all levels. And I think we're getting there and we're moving in that direction.
When you start looking at, clinical trials, getting input from patients, how are they going to react to certain solutions that may be available to them, having that input and understanding for patients, understand a little bit more about the process and how we might get involved with the organization is a big step.
Non-profit, for-profit, I think it doesn't really matter when you're thinking about the patient at the center of the picture.
Sue Sheridan from PCORI, Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute, often describes the act of engaging patients, where she describes it as getting a greeting card that has glitter on it, and you open it up on your desk, and no matter how careful you are to put it back in the envelope, you're covered in glitter. It impacts your decision making. It changes the frame and lens of what you do. So hugely important opportunities to understand the patient perspective throughout the development of these frameworks.
Pros and cons. Pros. Value-based approaches can encourage firms to produce more of what people want. US-based initiative represents private sector solutions. Cons. The frameworks reveal numerous analytic challenges. The frameworks either ignore a drug's overall budget impact or handle it inadequately.
We're about a few days away from an election. I think there's, yeah. And I think, I'm not going to ask you how you're going to vote, but I think in the wake of, you know, these scandals we've had, starting with Valiant and then Shkreli and then the Mylan EpiPen, there's going to be enormous pressure. Really, whoever gets elected, there's going to be enormous political pressure to say, screw this, we tried it. We want Medicare to be able to negotiate directly with drug companies, which I think effectively means we're going to regulate drug prices like everybody else in the world. Good idea or bad idea?
Not fully fleshed out, so very hard to gauge. But you know, the fact that there's no.
So you're saying it would be a good idea if they did it right?
I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with there being a Medicare buy-in plan for prescription drugs, which is what the whole discussion is about, negotiation. Just like there should probably be a public option in the exchanges.
Good idea or bad idea?
So it's a bad idea right now for the following reason. If you think about it, if it's not a matter of who's negotiating the price, that is, these are the same people that negotiate for toilet seats and hammers for the U.S. government. They haven't shown themselves to be the greatest negotiators. The bigger problem is, do they want a narrow formulary and take away choice? You can get really good prices like the VA does because the VA has one beta blocker available. And so they give entire market share to a pharmaceutical company. What Medicare has is a situation where they allow every single drug to be on the formulary, and there's no reason for a pharmaceutical company to give them a better price just because the government's negotiating. So they actually have to be able to do formulary management, narrow choices, and will people want that? You know, that's a big trade-off.
Issue applied in Ecuador. In Ecuador, some specific government departments are the responsible of the regulation of drugs prices. Hi, in this video we are gonna look some of the articles that constant in the resolution of the National Council of the Fixation and Revision of Prices for Use and Human Consumption. So I can show you that in Ecuador, government departments are the responsible of the regulation of drugs prices. So let's start with the Article 159 that determines that it corresponds to the national health, the fixation, revision, and control of prices of medicine for human use through the National Council of Fixation and Revision of Prices of Medical Products for Human Use in accordance with the law. It is forbidden the marketing of products indicated above without fixing or revision of prices. The norm Ut Supra in the Article 162 lays out that the prices that are in sale to the public must be impressed on the packaging in order it cannot be removed. It is forbidden to change prices or to put tax that modifies them. In conclusion, we can say that these emerging approaches for assessing drug value are welcome in a health system sorely in need of strategies for obtaining more health for the resources expended. The frameworks will require refinement, however, before they are ready to be broadly applied.
The future of pharma is arriving now. It's time to get on board or risk getting left behind. Now more than ever, it's unfeasible and even dangerous to rely on the projection models of old and the predictions of yesterday. Yet many in the industry have already set forecasts for the next 15 years. At KPMG, we believe that the pharma sector has reached a crucial tipping point, due in no small part to emerging and disruptive trends. As a result, these current revenue forecasts may quite simply be wrong. Fundamental power shifts are occurring across the healthcare value chain. The first is that pharmaceutical companies are no longer dictating market terms. Governments and insurance companies are facing mounting budget pressures and are questioning the traditional assumptions of how patients should be treated. As such, better drugs, better pills, and better medicine are no longer the order of the day. It's patient outcomes that have become the main measure of success.
Thank you.